Hey guys, welcome to the 2021 edition of my Top 10 Games of the Year. Before we jump into the top 10, I've got a bunch of shoutouts and honorable mentions, starting with a list of the games I bought and was interested in, but didn't get around to playing, so don't get mad at me for these games not appearing on the list. These include It Takes Two, Super Sammy Roll, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, New Pokemon Snap, Ratchet & Clank A Rift Apart, and Death Stranding Director's Cut. These games all looked cool to me, and I wanted to play them before making the list this year, but I don't want to delay the video into February again. I just didn't have the time to play through all of these before making this video. Next up are the honorable mentions. First, I like to give props to a game from the previous year that I didn't play until after making that year's list. So, 2020's honorable mention goes to Pumpkin Jack. This medieval-inspired platformer sees Jack fighting the devil's armies of evil spirits and collecting a number of items such as crow skulls, presents, and costumes. The combat is satisfying, and the collectibles make for really fun-to-explore level design, and the boss encounters are a real highlight. I love the Halloween theming and story, and the lighting is absolutely gorgeous. Even with the lower poly art style, this game still looks incredible. If I had played it beforehand, Pumpkin Jack would have easily made my top 10 games of 2020 list. I also want to give a special highlight to the best DLC of 2021, The Binding of Isaac Repentance. Repentance is by far the best expansion Isaac has ever had, adding tons of new items, 2 full new routes and bosses, more than double the character roster, and a perfect conclusion to the game's story. It also does a fantastic job of rebalancing a lot of the older items, giving some of the previously insignificant ones small new side effects, and completely reworking others like Glass Cannon. This is on top of tons of resprites and the addition of a true co-op mode. Isaac has never been more fun and content-rich. I got into the game just before Repentance came out and have since logged over 400 hours and got over 400 of the game's 637 achievements. Isaac is already one of the most replayable games ever made, and Repentance pushed it even further. If I considered it for the actual top 10, it would easily be in my top 5, but since it's just a DLC expansion, it gets its own highlight here. Finally, there's the question of remakes. In a year this dense, filled with great games, I wanted to limit the list to only one remake, but there were quite a lot of great remakes this year, so I decided to do a lightning round of shoutouts for some noteworthy re-releases. These shoutouts go to Mario Party Superstars, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, and Miitopia. With all the honorable mentions and shoutouts out of the way, let's move on to the list proper with number 10. Omno is a hard game to accurately describe. It's something of a 3D puzzle platformer with big sandbox levels. It's filled with wondrous creatures and beautiful sprawling landscapes. The unique art style and fantastic lighting effects make for an incredible immersive experience, and I recounted numerous instances where I just looked around at the environment, awestruck by its beauty. It's very rare that a game captures me this much with its visuals alone, but that's not to say the gameplay is lacking or anything. While they mostly aren't super difficult, the puzzles add some variety to the gameplay, and exploring all the levels to find all the creatures and story glyphs and whatnot is really satisfying. It may be short, but Omno is definitely an experience worth your time. "2D and Top D is one of the most unique puzzle games I've ever played. It combines a top-down puzzler with a side-scrolling platformer, with over 200 levels of brain-busting challenges. It's also got a fantastic soundtrack and a beautiful 3D, 2D pixel art style. The sheer amount of cleverness in the puzzle design on display here is incredibly impressive. There's even extra challenges for each puzzle, requiring you to beat the level in as few swaps as possible and as fast as possible, which adds replayability and challenge to an already fairly meaty game by puzzle standards. This also has one of the coolest ending sequences in any game I've ever played, which I wouldn't dare spoil here. You'll just have to check it out for yourself. This last year, I discovered the To the Moon series and instantly fell in love with its excellent storytelling. Fortunately for me, the third game was on its way, and I wouldn't have to wait too long for the newest installment, Imposter Factory. And no, it has nothing to do with Among Us. Imposter Factory carries on the incredible narrative and deep, complex characters the series is known for, while expanding on the existing story that's been building up since the first game. The series is ultimately one about life and the different ways in which people apply value to it, and its commentary on these subjects will leave you feeling very introspective about your own. I can't say too much without spoiling, so you're just gonna have to take my word on this one. Do not pass up these beautiful stories. Play them all ASAP. Button City is a game that, on the surface, seems very unassuming. It's a basic game where you, as Fennel, the new kid in town, meet some friends at an arcade and do fairly simple tasks like fetch quests to progress throughout the story. It's that story, then, which carries the game for me. While Imposter Factories is probably better, Button City's narrative spoke to me on a very personal level. People love to say that certain games make them feel like a kid again, but this is usually in response to some nostalgia-pandering remake or something. Button City is the first game to truly achieve that for me. It reminded me of what it was like to be naive about the world around me, but nevertheless ambitious to see all it had to offer and to not take for granted the facets of life we so often overlook as adults. Button City's gameplay may be a bit tedious or boring to some, but it was more than enough to walk me through the game's narrative during its short runtime. I absolutely fell in love with Button City and precisely what it had to say about the world. And in connecting with its message so personally, I was reminded of some of the joys in life I had forgotten about. Considering it's my favorite genre, I've been ecstatic to see 3D platformers come back in such a huge way the past few years. From the challenging, linear, closed 3D style games to open-ended sandbox collectathons, the genre hasn't seen this much activity and variety since the early 2000s. Hell, half of the rest of this list are 3D platformers, and Blue Fire is one of the most unique ones I've played. You're dropped into a large world with tons of interconnected paths and areas to explore, collecting new items and abilities to further open the world up and expand your moveset. It combines the world design of Dark Souls and that intoxicating feeling of progression from the Metroidvania genre with the satisfying movement of a 3D platformer, with tons of different moves to mess around with and combine for some truly crazy techniques. It's also got some pretty fun, albeit quite simple combat to spice things up and excellent bosses that put it to good use. While I wasn't a huge fan of the free DLC post-game content, the main campaign is more than enough to be worth your time, so definitely check this game out. For a number of reasons I won't go too deep into here, Super Mario 3D World is probably my least favorite 3D Mario game. When it launched on Wii U in 2013, I was disappointed in its underwhelming level theme, slow gameplay, and generic New Super Mario Bros.-esque aesthetics. 8 years later, we got Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury for the Switch, and I'll say right now, this may be the best re-release of a game I've ever seen, up there with the likes of Metroid Zero Mission. 3D World Plus fixes damn near everything I took issue with in the Wii U original, decreasing loading and transition times, adding cutscene skip options, increasing the movement speed of the entire game, all while keeping old speedrun techniques like cat dive momentum perfectly intact. New moves, a new photo mode, and even online multiplayer. 3D World Plus is a fine example that sometimes all a game needs to go from okay to amazing is some little quality of life enhancements, and this re-release is packed full of them. As if that wasn't enough, Nintendo went and created an entire new side game to bundle in with it, and it is amazing. It may be short, but for a little side game included in a re-release, it is way better than other similar side offerings have been in the past. You get a huge open world to explore, collecting shines and defending yourself against this gigantic menacing Bowser possessed by evil goop. Bowser's Fury is just so much fun to play, and applying 3D World's cat theming to everything is just hilarious. 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is simultaneously one of the best re-releases of an old Mario game, and one of the best new Mario games. And that is really impressive. I'll tell you what, the Version Versus episode on this one is going to be real fun. This year, I absolutely fell in love with a new IP by a little indie studio called Cyactro. Tori 3D came out at just the right time, as one of the most hyped up 3D platforming releases of the year disappointed hard with Balan Wonderworld, and Tori's recent release on Switch and cheap price tag of only $1 made for very favorable comparisons. Only 5 months later, the sequel released, and Tori 2 does everything the first game did right, but even better. I don't care if the game is only 9 levels long, Tori 2 is one of the most fun games I have ever played. The thrilling sense of speed, fun collectibles, and ranking system to increase replayability, and amazing soundtrack made this one of the most standout, memorable games in the entire genre for me. Playing Tori just puts a huge smile on my face from start to finish, and as if that wasn't enough, the game got a Christmas-themed free content update in December that experiments with more open-ended collectathon design. This is simply one of the most charming and lovable games I played all year, and I just can't help but rank it this highly for all the joy it brought me. "2021 was a really incredible year for games to me. I played so many new games that narrowing down just 10 for this list was a genuine challenge, so much so that we got a brand new 2D Metroid game. One that even managed to beat out Zero Mission and become my favorite game in the series, and it only managed to hit number 3 on my list. Metroid Dread is everything I've wanted in a new Metroid game. Where Samus Returns felt somewhat disappointing with its slower pace and distinct lack of any sequence breaks, Dread runs the complete opposite direction and reintroduces the freedom of exploration seen in Super Metroid and Zero Mission. It also tightens up the combat and increases the speed of the game from Samus Returns and Fusion, all while doubling down on the production value with cinematic action sequences and incredible environmental effects. As much as I was excited for the game after its announcement at E3, I still had a bit of skepticism, worrying that it would lack what made Metroid so special like Samus Returns somewhat did. And I've never been happier to be wrong. I still can't even believe that Metroid Dread exists, so the fact that it's a damn near perfect Metroid game too is unbelievable. Whatever Mercury Steam cooks up for us next, I am ready for it. If there's any word I can use to describe Chicory, it's sincere. This game has a very personal story to tell, a very genuine message to send, and it does this so elegantly by perfectly tying its gameplay to its themes. In Chicory, you play as a little dog who works as a custodian for the Wielder, an artist who uses a magical brush to paint the world. When you find Chicory's brush left unattended, you search for her to return it, only to get tangled up in a big problem involving these scary-looking trees. From there, what unfolds is a story about coming to grips with your own shortcomings as a person and learning not to be too hard on yourself for it. It's a beautiful story that I felt really connected with. The gameplay sees you painting the world to solve puzzles, open new areas, do side quests for the people of Picnic, and most importantly, express your artistic creativity. I don't want to undersell the gameplay by overselling the story here, because that was also really fun. I had so much fun just coloring in the world and making drawings for the Art Academy and exploring the dungeons and finding all the secrets. For an indie game, Chicory is fairly meaty too. It took me 35 hours to 100% it, which is pretty damn good for an adventure game in this style. The beautiful soundtrack, cute art style, and charming dialogue all helped to make Chicory an incredibly memorable experience. The game is even out on Switch now, so you can draw in handheld mode and everything. However you play it, just make sure you don't miss out on this gem. Finally, my 2021 Game of the Year is Psychonauts 2. I am honestly stunned with just how fucking good this game is. Like, holy shit. Like I said before, my favorite genre is the 3D platformer, and this is one of the best 3D platformers ever made. Not only does it feature a fantastic moveset of fun and versatile moves, not only does it feature a fantastic and creative art style matched with beautiful creative environments and technically impressive effects, not only does it feature a wonderfully written story mixed with hilarious dialogue, but it does all of these things with a sense of style and confidence that very few games match. This is mostly thanks to the game's AAA budget, which Psychonauts honestly deserves. If we do ever see a Psychonauts 3, I will be the first in line for it because I cannot get enough of this. Psychonauts 2 is simply a masterpiece. It does everything it sets out to do with perfect execution and goes above and beyond to deliver a unique and fun experience. Psychonauts 2 is not only my favorite game of 2021, but one of my favorite games of all time. Congratulations to everyone at Double Fine for their amazing work on this amazing game. Well, that concludes another year, and man, what a year it was. So many incredible games this year. I really had my hands full. I've heard lots of people complain that this year was really slow or uninteresting, and with all the indie games I had my eyes on, I couldn't disagree more. 2021 might have been one of the best years in gaming I've ever experienced. As for 2022, I'm really looking forward to Cow the Kangaroo 4, Sonic Frontiers, Froguns, Stray, the Bugsnax DLC, and plenty more fun-looking indie games. My next couple of videos will be taking a break from the Arcade Pac-Man Marathon for a brief look at a couple of games mentioned earlier in this video. Think you can guess what they're gonna be? You'll just have to wait and see. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe and all that crap. If you want to support me directly, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link on screen or in the description. Thanks for watching!